Okay, welcome back everyone to the latest production line developer blog video. I am Cliff Harris. I'm the coder, designer, whatever you want to call it, making this game that's in early access. It's a game about building a car factory. I'm not wearing my normal hat today. I thought I'd, just mix it up a little and wear a different hat because I'm not actually in a factory. So it's, although I do have robots, but not actually ones doing any welding. Anyway, so the big news of the week, and it's kind of like half finished at the moment, is that what you are excuse me, what you are watching right now is incredibly excitingly the 64-bit release build version of the game. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I care, why you should care, what that means. It doesn't actually mean a lot. Most games these days are 64-bit. Some smaller games and older games are 32-bit. They all used to be 32-bit. Before then they were 16-bit. Anyway, here's the really simplistic and highly kind of edited version of what on earth it means. Computers only understand numbers, and everything involved in a computer game or any other piece of software is just basically a string of numbers, some of which are interpreted as opcodes and eventually kind of like machine instructions to do a particular thing. Other numbers are data, like the colors of pixels or the the value of this car or whatever, and all of those numbers themselves are stored in memory, and each individual bit and byte of memory effectively has an address, which is just a number. So there is a number that says not only how much that car is worth, but there is a number that defines which byte in memory that number is stored at. So if I want to get at that number and print it out here, I need the address of that particular bit of memory. Now, numbers can only be so big, and you have to kind of like define how big a number like an integer, which is like a whole number, can possibly be in the context of your program. So software used to be mostly like 32-bit, where you would use 32 bits, so 4 bytes, to represent how big those numbers could be. So what that meant is every time you had a number in the game or an address in the game, it would take up 4 bytes. 4 bytes, 16, 32, yeah, okay. And that's fine, and that's great, and we managed with that for decades. The problem is you can only get to a certain maximum value of that number. So it restricts the amount of memory that your program can actually access. Now, in kind of realistic practical terms, with an operating system and everything else, that means that a 32-bit program can only really use 2 gigabytes of memory. Now, because everyone has like 4 gig or 8 gig or even 16 gig of RAM these days. I even was looking at a laptop yesterday that had 32 gigabytes of RAM. It's just insane. Because everyone has that amount, you kind of think that 2 gig isn't a lot, and you can download a video file that is 2 gig and like Blu-rays are bigger than that and what have you. So you don't think of 2 gigabytes as being an enormous amount of RAM. Actually, 2 gigabytes is a phenomenal amount of RAM. If you look at this map at the moment, this is my game. All of the graphics and all of the data and all of the historical data and all of the stats about everything in the game, all of this stuff going back to the start of this game, all of the sound, all of the music, everything that is currently being used in this game at the moment fits into 828 megabytes. So it doesn't actually matter. I could double the size of this in terms of adding more slots and more graphics and everything, and still just about fit within 2 gig. However, some people want to build much bigger factories than this, and they have built bigger factories than this, that eventually, when they really push things, it can crash the game. It is incredibly rare, and statistically speaking, if you're watching this and you play the game, it has not happened to you, and it will not happen to you. However, I like having the headroom there of being able to allow people to build stupidly big factories, because that's kind of like part of the fun of games like this. And I also like the capability of maybe adding a lot more data to the game in order to make the game more accurate and more interesting. I would love to add more graphics to the game if it sells enough copies that I can have a load more art. I'd love loads of variations of stuff. Maybe post-release there'd be DLC. Maybe people want to do huge mods for the game. It supports Steam Workshop, so I thought, yeah, you know, let's bite the bullet and get over it and port to 64-bit. So we now have a 64-bit version of the game. It is not finished and ready. I'm hoping it will be finished and ready tomorrow, and then I will sort of test it for a while. Probably for another day of just like playing through everything to check it's okay before I put it out to the unstable build and then to the final build. You will not notice any difference whatsoever. The only difference you will notice is if you go into Task Manager in Windows and you look at the game that's running, it will say, firstly, the executable will be called Production Line 64-bit, but it will be called Production Line 64bit.exe, and it will not have a little open brackets that says 32 bits. If out of interest you want to know how much of the software running on your PC is 32-bit, if you look in Task Manager and Processes, you will see in brackets all of the programs that are 32-bit. I should point out that when I'm looking at it now, almost everything on my PC is 32-bit. Skype is 32-bit. Visual Studio, which ironically I'm using to make a 64-bit program, is 32-bit. I use Malwarebytes, that's 32-bit. I think Steam is 32-bit. My backup stuff is 32-bit. It's pretty common, unless you need to access a real ton of data. I can't actually find where Steam is on here. I'm sure someone told me it was 32-bit, and I think it probably is. I don't know. But a lot of games, like all first-person shooters, are 64-bit now. Now, some people may be playing the game on a 32-bit operating system. I suspect that is less than 0.1% of the people playing the game. I'm interested to know if that is the case, and I will. Oh my god, I'm running out of money here. My god! As part of the price of this car, just while I'm here, because we've got too many of them in the showroom. Hopefully that will help slightly. I tell you what, I'm not doing any research. I'm going to just, while I'm here, I did loads of research because I wanted to research a certain thing. How do you do it? It's control, isn't it? Yeah. To just cut down on the useless research for a minute. Sorry about that. Yeah, I can still keep a 32-bit build of it going. So don't worry. Even though it will probably affect hardly anyone, it's not going to be impossible. I had to change some code in the game, but nothing dramatic, and it's all backwards compatible and it's all fine. It just involves a lot of monkeying around with configuration crap. Anyway, 64-bit, yay, whatever. We fixed loads of bugs to do with like archiving old designs, some optimization stuff. The big news is here. I've never been happy with this because oh look, now I've got that. This is a thing that I think Chrome does and Firefox does, that if you middle tap the mouse you get into this thing where you can kind of scroll around just by going to the corners like that, and you middle mouse to get rid of it. Or you can click drag now, and you can click drag kind of in both dimensions. If I go here, it's more obvious. So you can click drag like this, or you can middle click and then you can like move around like that. There's a dead zone in the middle. I much prefer click dragging. So this is a new thing, just to make these tech trees more user friendly for when you kind of like go over here, because we've got self-driving as a new thing, relatively new thing anyway. I still may improve upon this and change this because I'm still not happy with this. I know people want click like a reorganization by dragging stuff in the research queue. I know that's going to happen at some point. We do have a new thing that went in, which is going to be down here, preventative maintenance, which I've already researched. It's a thing at maintenance facilities, which you can buy. Oh my god! It crashed! It crashed, wow. Fascinating. I wonder why it crashed. That is amazing. Let me relaunch. 64-bit, huh? Harder than it looks. Let's just load that back in. Who cares? That's annoying. So that's a new tech thing that's been researched. What else have we got? Oh yeah, if you play in sandbox or free play now, all of the car colours are automatically unlocked from the start of the game. This is taking longer to load, and I think this is that my 64-bit config is still using the debug version of the engine and the release build version of the game code. I don't know. This is the kind of stuff I need to fix. I've ordered some new stuff. We're going to have white leather seats and red leather seats. We kind of like discussed that last week. So that's gone in. Active spoilers. Did I put in active spoilers? I think I did. But we'll find out. This is longer than usual, isn't it? Normally when I load a game, even if it's a massive game like this, it's pretty much instant. Is that a thing? Do we have spoilers as a category? Yeah, we do. Spoilers, spoiler, and then there's active spoiler, I think, is a new technology somewhere. Where would that be? It's before. Active spoiler is a new thing. If you're wondering what an active spoiler is, a spoiler is that thing at the back of a car that like sits up like a little fin, which supposedly, if you go really fast, it stops the car from taking off. It doesn't really stop it from taking off, but it kind of like forces it down onto the ground so you get more traction. You only need that if you go really fast. So some super high-end sports cars have an active spoiler that's built into the car, and as you get to a certain speed, it senses that with a sensor, and then it goes and like raises a little spoiler out the back of the car. So that's a new thing that's gone in. I like adding really high-end nonsense for cars. There's a lot of cool high-end nonsense out there. I fixed a bug to do with switching to chrome and then back again, and then some cars changing depending on zoom levels and other stuff. That's almost it. So I'm going to do some 64-bit. I'm going to mess around with chip manufacture, which I really want to put in at some point. I've got a few little user interface things that I want to do in the next week. Something that doesn't happen here is you know these warning icons that show up if like this, they don't yet show up on categories like that, so I want to put that in because that's kind of annoying. What was that? That was a budget car, wasn't it? Let's put that back. Something that I'm thinking of doing, because I've been watching a load of videos of welding robots because that's how I relax. Don't judge me. Is that when you see the welding here, here's a bit of car welding in the sort of body in white area. It's not that dramatic. If you actually watch some serious welding in a car factory, there's sparks go all over the place. I'm thinking of doing away with this animation, because this is actually an animation, and replacing it with my own particle system that shoots sparks all over the place. I think it might be a kind of more dramatic, because this is a bit laid back, isn't it? This doesn't look like Welding City. I know it's a bit spaced out, because I wanted to have room for like intermediate things, but I'm quite tempted to redo all that animation stuff. I wonder what you think, especially if you work in a car factory. I love hearing comments on videos from people who say, oh, you know, I work in the welding department, I work in the paint department, whatever. I do find it genuinely interesting, and like if you look at this and go, yeah, that's all well and good, but actually in our factory, blah 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 blah, I'm always interested. I don't always reply because I'm very busy, but I'm always interested in reading when people look at the game and they play the game and they go, you know, it's cool, but in our factory you never keep stuff here, or it's a lot louder, or there's 10 times as much storage of whatever. I don't know, because you know I've never done it. I've only visited one car factory so far. I'm always really interested to know. Okay, so this is production line and 64 bits. How exciting, and loads of cool stuff to go in. and beyond that I'm going to be doing like advisors, and there's going to be a character that will kind of pop up and go, hey, this car isn't selling, you need to change this, hey, we're running low on money, our competitors have researched this and you should do that. So that's a thing that I'm going to be working on at some point, and then it will be level editors and other things like that. So that's what's going on in the world of production line. Thank you for watching these videos. Like and subscribe, etc. It's so vitally important. Nothing more important is happening in the next 48 hours globally than you liking and subscribing to these YouTube videos. I can assure you there are no other more important world events happening. That's satire. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.